Maraming salamat sa pagnood. Welcome sa Milyonaryo, ang tambayan ng mga future trillionaires para ma-inspire. Ayon sa marami, siya ang pinakamagaling na basketball player sa buong mundo. Nagsimula siya sa pagiging kulelat nung sumali siya sa junior league nung bata pa. Ngayon ay binabansagan siya na GOAT na greatest of all time. Siya ang late Kobe Bryant at ito ang kanyang 10 batas para sa tagumpay. Number 1. Galingan mo araw-araw.
My philosophy was a very simple one. And this is where I think film plays a big part of my life. Rudy was one of my favorite films growing up. After watching that film, I come to understand if I could work that hard every day, with being blessed with the physical tools that I have, what would my career be? And I made a promise to myself from that day that I was going to work that hard every single day, so that when I do retire, I have no regrets. And that was the most important thing for me, is to leave no stone unturned, get better every single day. And if I lived that way, then over time, I'd have something that was beautiful. But that was my philosophy. It seems like a pretty simple one, but if you live your life to just get better every single day, and do that for 20 years, what do you have?
Number 2. Prove them wrong.
Where did you get your killer instinct from?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with isolation. Growing up over there and being the only African-American kid, not being able to speak the language, I gravitated towards the game. And in that game, you find a lot of, you find solace in the game. And then when you play with kids that might not accept you because you're an outsider, but yet when we come to play the game, that's my chance to get vengeance on them for not accepting me, and that's where it kind of started developing. And throughout the course of my life, it's always been that. It's always been the outsider and having to come in and prove, or to seek some sort of vengeance when I play.
Number 3. Stop complaining.
You were so dominant in your whole career, one of the greatest of all time. Was there a weakness that you had?
The challenge for me was always compassion and empathy.
Because you're like, guys, let's go. Get results. Shut up. Don't complain, right?
I don't want to hear your whining. I don't want to hear it. Don't
no
tell
excuses.
Don't tell me how rough the water is. Just bring the boat in. I don't want to hear it. And it's
That's funny.
It's understanding okay, these guys have lives outside of here.
They have other things happening.
Have other things happening to them that may be affecting the way that they're practicing or the way that they're performing. Right? And it was hard for me to understand that because nothing bothered me. Anything personally that never fazed me when I played.
You compartmentalized it.
Very well. So I couldn't understand how my teammates couldn't do that either until so I had to really work on that aspect of it.
That's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Number 4. Visualize your dreams.
In 2006 against the Toronto Raptors, you scored 81 points, which is second only to Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points.
I always dreamed as a kid that it was possible to score 80 or 90 or 100. I always just had a dream. Sometimes you lay down in bed and you visualize things. And you just kind of, that's at least how I would go to sleep. I'd lay down, I'd imagine playing for the Lakers, and I would imagine what the uniforms look like. I would imagine where we'd be playing, and, smell the arena and all sorts of stuff. And I would see myself, getting hot, score 10 straight points. But in a dream, why would you ever interrupt that? You're not going to have a dream and be like, okay, and then he misses his next 6. It's not going to happen. So you just keep dreaming and dreaming and dreaming. And before I go to sleep, I'm at 120 points, And so when you grow up, downloading that into your brain over and over and over. And then, that summer, I made 1,000 shots a day. 1,000, right? That's on top of weight training and my conditioning. I made 1,000 shots, and they weren't just shots. It were shots that you saw in that game. There were specific shots. It was coming out of the corner, going to the pinch post, footwork in the post, coming off the screen. It was very specific. So when you download that into your system, and you go out in the court and you're just executing things that you've done thousands of times before, and you have that dream, then that becomes possible.
Yeah, everything's been not choreographed, but it's been practiced so many times that it's second nature.
There's why reinvent it? I don't understand that. go out and play the game and you're just trying to create something new. No, this is what I do. This is what I do extremely well. You're gonna have to stop me from doing that. And if you do stop me from doing that, I have a counter to that. Done.
Number 5. Learn from greatness.
Another thing you told me as an 18-year-old, I'm gonna be better than Mike. So I knew it definitely drove you. And, it's always gonna be there, those comparisons when somebody's come before you and you do similar. I don't know if you patterned the game after him or not. I don't know if you watched him in high school, but there was a lot of similarities. But I know that day you passed up Michael Jordan, I know you was probably riding in your car like,
You know what, man? I thought I would be. But, what happened is when I came in the league and I wanted to take him on, right? All I heard was, they called him Black Panther, they called him Black Jesus and all this stuff. I said, I want to see what this is about. And, but what happened is that he wound up becoming a big brother to me.
Where you going, man? I know where you're going. You gotta get up quick. If you knew where I was going, why you go for the fake? Mike, after you fake the ball, where else you gonna go? You left your feet. Yeah, but where else you gonna go? In the game, I go for you. I spun all the way around. I go for these ribs right here.
He saw something in me that reminded him a lot of himself when he was coming up. And he took me under his wing a lot and showed me a lot of things, taught me a lot of things, a lot of leadership things.
Kobe Bryant passes the great Michael Jordan and moves into third on the NBA's all-time scoring list.
So when I passed him up, I remember talking to him afterwards and saying, this is kind of, it's like he's still here. The information and the stuff that he's passed on to me, I'm breathing that spirit back into the game all over again, which is a lot of the reason why I try to do that now for the next generation, because he did that for me. Bill Russell did that for me. Jerry West, all you guys, but Michael in particular.
Number 6. Learn from your mistakes.
So what does losing feel like to you?
It's exciting.
Why is it exciting?
Because it means you have different ways to get better. There's certain things that you can figure out that you can take advantage of, right? Certain weaknesses that were exposed that you need to shore up, right? So it was exciting. It sucks to lose,
right?
But at the same time, there are answers there if you just look at them.
Because you get the information from losing more than from winning, probably.
Yeah. The answers are there when you win too. You just have to look at them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a constant process. It's exciting when you win. It's exciting when you lose, because the process should be exactly the same, whether you win or you lose. As you go back and you look and you find things that you could have done better. You find things that you've done well that worked. You figure out how did they work, why did they work, how can you make them work again?
Yeah.
And but the hardest thing is to face that stuff. That's a really, really tough challenge.
You mean face it? You mean look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, this is how I showed up, or this is what happened? And
I'll give you an example. So Katie Lou Samuelson is one of the best college basketball players in the country. She plays at UConn. She's going to be a senior.
Right now.
Yeah. And she's from Huntington Beach, out here by us. And so she comes down and she works with some of my girls on the team, and she helps coach. And they just had a really tough season last year where they lost to Notre Dame in the final.
That's right.
Really tough.
First loss in years, right?
Yeah. And so I asked her, I said, have you watched the Notre Dame game? She was like, no. I said, well, why not? I said, I don't want to watch that. I said, I know you don't, but you're going to play Notre Dame this year, yeah? Yeah. What's the chances you see him again in the final? I said, well, you'll probably see him again. He said, well, you can't show up and play them without knowing why you lost that one, right? So, the mistakes that you've made in that game, you have to do the hard stuff and watch that game and study that game to not make those mistakes over and over again just because you weren't brave enough to face it. So she came down to the office. I brought her down to the office and we sat down, we watched that game together.
Wow.
Right? And you gotta deal with it.
Face it.
You gotta deal with it. Face it, learn from it.
Wow, it must have been cringing for her to just be like, oh, we're playing like we could have won, all these things.
That's exactly it, isn't it?
If I just did that one thing,
exactly
if I didn't get that foul, if I was scored that layup.
That's exactly right. You're looking and say, oh, there's the mismatch. Oh, there's the gap. And all those little things, and it sucks. But you don't want to have that feeling again, do you? Right? So you got to really study it, face it. And not to say you'll win the next time you face it, but at least you'll give yourself a better chance.
Yeah.
Number 7. Practice mindfulness.
Do you have a mindfulness or meditative practice that you used while you played?
Yeah, well, Phil introduced meditation to us when he came to our team in 99, 2000. And it was something that I instantly gravitated to because I could see the effects. Right? And I used to watch, studying the games, the Bulls teams, and watching their demeanor, watching their composure, playing in a tough place like Utah, doing the finals and being down 17. But everybody was like this. You couldn't tell if they were down 17 or up 20 or a tie game. It never changed. And I was wondering why the hell that is. And that's why I started doing more research. And when Phil came, I immediately gravitated to it and found myself accepted the challenge of finding what that space is. And for the 81-point game, man, to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about the game. My knee was hurting so much. I didn't know then, but I had a flap of joint of cartilage stuck in my joint line. And so my mind was really trying to go to a place where I don't feel that pain. And the game started, and because of that, I was just in a different space. I wasn't worried about what was to come. I wasn't worried about what just happened. I was just here. And when you're just there in the moment, playing plays right in front of you, your focus is heightened because nothing else matters. And that's the space I've tried to get to.
Number 8. Maging ambisyoso.
Do you remember what you told me one day in the forum when I first met you? You said you were going to be the finish it for me.
What, the greatest player of all time?
Yes. You remember you told me that?
No, but that sounds something.
No,
that sounds like something I would say.
you actually said that, and then you actually said I'm gonna be the Will Smith of the NBA. This was
really?
Yeah, and I was like, all right, okay,
Will Smith.
You said.
Yeah, times have changed. I've always had ambition.
Number 9. Believe in your team.
What are you most proud of from your 20 seasons?
Honestly, it sounds may sound a little shallow, but I gotta say beating the Celtics in Game 7. That's what I'm most proud of because it was the hardest. You're playing with Rajon Rondo, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett,
All-stars.
Ray Allen, and it was myself, Powell, and players that other teams didn't want. And how do we figure out as a group what to do? And the reason why I love that series so much is that we went down 3-2 against Boston. And now you got 2 games coming home. I remember sitting in the locker room and they beat the crap out of us too that game. So we're sitting in the locker room and it's really, really quiet. And I'm sitting there looking around and we just lost the Celtics in 08. So this is like revenge, right? And they're kicking our butt again, right? So I sit around and I just started laughing. And then I remember Derek Fisher looked at me and Lamar looked at me and goes, what is funny? I said, dude, they beat the crap out of us. They just beat the crap out. I said, I'm missing the part where that's funny. I said, man, listen, if we start this season and they say, all you have to do is win 2 games at home and you're NBA champ, would you take that?
Yeah.
And right.
Yeah, right.
That's all we got to do.
Yeah.
Go
Down
home,
3-2.
win 2. We're NBA champions. All we got to do is win 2 games in a row. That's it. We'll take care of the first game, and I promise you, they're not winning Game 7 on our home floor. It's not happening. So we all just laughed about it. And then we went out and we figured it out. But that Game 7 we're down 15 points in the fourth quarter, right? And that's when you have to collectively look at each other and say, the spirit of your team must be good. Because at that moment is when teams fracture. If the energy amongst each other isn't there, that trust isn't there, you're done. And we were able to collectively dig deep together and say, all right, we're going to figure this thing out.
Wow.
And I wasn't playing well. I wasn't shooting the ball well at all. And so my teammates
Picked you up and they delivered.
Yes.
Yeah.
And number 10. Learn storytelling.
Storytelling for me is the number one thing. It's writing, it's outlining, it's creating narratives that can inspire the next generation of athletes, right? What are those things? And not from merely a documentary perspective, but from a fantasy perspective, from a mythology perspective, right? What are those stories that we can use to teach the next generation of athletes, not just about the sport, but teach them about life through sport? How do we make those connections? And so that's what I obsess over every single day.
At ayan mga kaibigan ng 10 batas ng tagumpay ni Kobe Bryant. Ano pinakagusto nyo? Isulat lamang sa comments dahil ang aktong pagsulat ng isang bagay ay lalo itong mananatili sa'yo. Ang paborito namin ay yung number 8 na maging ambisyoso. Kung nagustuhan nyo tong video na to, please smash that like button at pakishare sa buong barkada para lahat tayo ay sama-samang magtagumpay. Kung may natutunan naman kayo, please subscribe and don't forget to smash that notification bell. Magkita-kita tayo sa next video. Keep learning because life keeps teaching. At laging tandaan, good vibes, good life.